Good evening, everybody. In my session, I'm going to touch upon the impact of digital technologies on the business and society and how these technologies are going to be transforming tomorrow's jobs, tomorrow's careers. But before I get started to talk about all of these buzzwords, AI, IoT, and whatnot that you may be hearing about digital technologies, I would like to spend a few moments talking about how jobs and professions have transformed or have changed over a period of time. The first example I would like to take is that of news and communication. In the good old days, we used to have pigeons being used as messengers for communicating news from one place to the other. That was taken over later by the runners. Then we had horse carriages carrying the news. We had town criers bringing the news from palaces of the kings to disseminate information or news to the dwellers in a town. And then we also had the example of those tangos, the Persian travelers who would be traveling from one place to the other, and along the way they would stop over and regale the audiences with news and exciting adventures of what they had experienced in different parts of the world, and that's how they managed to get a worldview of what was happening around them. In the 19th century, with the introduction of Morse code and telegraph, we started seeing the prominence of telegraph specialists who could, in a very short span of time, manage to communicate cryptic messages from one place to the other. That prominence was once again short-lived because the journalists started taking center stage, bringing together news from various parts of the world. News readers and news presenters started using new technologies of radio and television to communicate news from various parts of the world. And today we have mobile phones and all forms of gadgets where with a flick of a button, we are able to access and consume news and information based on our own preferences and our own interests. Not only that, we have bloggers and Twitterati actually being able to communicate interesting news and happenings around them to millions of people around the world. Let me take another example. This is about recording of history. For recording of history, we have had writers. And probably the world's earliest writer was Lord Ganesha himself, who is credited to having recorded history of Mahabharata as recited by Ved Vyas. And then we have the example of the writers being hired in very large numbers by East India Company and being housed in a separate building dedicated for writers, which is called Writers' Building, which stands tall even today in the city of Kolkata. Later, with the introduction of typewriters, computers, we started seeing new roles evolving. Roles of stenographers, typists, secretaries. And today, even those roles are in danger of disappearing because we have what is known as AI agents who are able to think proactively, get into your minds, think about what could be your thought process and what could be the ideas that you would like to put onto paper and translate into notes and books. Let's take the case of cash. It used to be dispensed by the Munimjis. The role of Munimjis started disappearing once we started having banks, the tellers, and the cashiers. And those are getting slowly replaced by the ATMs. And today, one mobile phone can interact with any gadget and complete the financial transactions in no time. Lastly, I would like to give you the example of customer service. Customer service normally meant getting across to the desk where somebody is seated and having face-to-face interaction to solve your queries. But what we are now seeing is that this role has been given away to tele-agents who could be located in any part of the world, maybe in Johannesburg, maybe in Gurgaon, maybe in Pune, and in any language of your choice, your questions could be answered and proactively you could get answers. But even those roles are now in danger. They are likely to be replaced by the automated agents, and as we speak, many of these tele-agents are being replaced by automated agents who are getting trained to proactively understand what their customers' queries could be and how to make the interactions really meaningful. So what we are seeing with a lot of these examples is that over a period of time, over the generations, we have seen number of professions changing, some of the professions simply disappearing, some new jobs getting created, some of the jobs and roles, their scope getting expanded. And all of these have happened, and we have seen that the society has evolved, it has matured, civilizations have become more and more advanced thanks to the introduction of science and technology. So while we have seen all of these changes happening, is it any wonder that today when we are in the cusp of digital transformation, we have similar questions and concerns about what these digital technologies entail for us and how our lives are going to be transformed and how we need to think about the future. Of course, there will be some amount of concern and questions and confusion. In fact, I would like to give you this example of coffee drinking, which was not at all common in South India right up to the 20s or 30s. While reading this book that I've cited here, it was very fascinating to note that people residing in the society at that time had a lot of problems with coffee drinking being introduced by the English in the southern region, and had written editorials and letters to the editor in the Hindu newspaper, and had complained that coffee drinking, which is not at all relevant for this country, and why are we introducing this? So naturally, there will be confusion, there will be questions. Now coffee drinking has become absolutely synonymous with every South Indian family that we can think of, and elsewhere in the country as well. So it is for us to think about getting to know more information, getting to understand what this change would mean to us in the society, particularly because of digital technologies, and how do we prepare ourselves so that this transition, when it happens, we are fully equipped to succeed. Let me now talk about digital transformation. What does it really mean? When we think about digital technologies, very often I hear people saying, digital means mobile phone, digital means cloud, or digital means ubiquitous connectivity. Digital technologies, yes, they mean this and much more. But when we are talking about transformation, it is the ability of bringing together these digital technologies and creating new applications, exciting applications, which in turn will transform the society, and that is what should be the focus for us. So when we talk about applications, today because of these digital technologies, it is possible to bring together the physical world and the digital world. It is now possible for us to look at anything as a service. Now, because of all of these emerging exciting applications, we are seeing that it is possible to create a unique experience to the users and to the consumers. It is possible to enhance the productivity in our operations, and we are beginning to see exciting new business models. And these business models are happening in every industry, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's retail, whether it's banking, and so on and so forth. But what is most important for us to note is that faster these businesses adopt technologies, more successful they realize they will be. And that's what we have started seeing in a big way with some of the businesses which are related to retail or banking and tourism. And they need to continue to, they realize that in order for them to remain competitive and remaining ahead of everybody else, they need to continue to do more and more around digital technologies and applications. As a result of which, something interesting is emerging in terms of models. We are finding that businesses which believed in creating resources suddenly are saying, well, we don't need assets and we can still be the world's largest taxi company, and that is Uber. Now, we have many, many more such examples happening. This is because these are the businesses which have understood how to translate the technologies into exciting applications without having their own assets or physical assets. So in all of these examples, what we are seeing is that new business models are coming up, technologies are getting embedded as part of the way businesses are being conducted. Therefore, what will the future of work look like? The future of work would mean, to begin with, unbundling the existing functions. For instance, the advertising manager today is expected to know everything end-to-end or manage everything end-to-end with respect to media. But today we are seeing there are web analysts, there are user experience specialists, and so on and so forth. So their functions are getting disintegrated. As a result of which, in the coming days, we are going to see project-based work being assigned rather than function-based work. What this would also mean is that instead of getting fixed salary, we will have consultancy engagements, and individuals can decide how much time they want to spend, what are the skills that they are able to acquire, based on which their remuneration will also be decided. All of this also means that no longer education credentials alone will be sufficient. They need to be able to demonstrate what skills they have, what digital technologies have they been able to incorporate in the way they have been able to deliver some unique experiences. Those will determine the nature of projects and assignments they would be able to get. So if this is the way future of work is going to be redefined, what will happen to the jobs that exist today? So as Keynes points out, there could be two possible effects. One is called the displacement effect, which means some of the current jobs will simply go away. And the other effect is called the productivity effect, which means existing jobs will get enriched and there will be more exciting outcomes for the stakeholders. To summarize, what are these four major scenarios that we should be prepared for? The first scenario is there will be some jobs which will be simply gone. They will be reduced to begin with and eventually gone. These are the monotonous jobs like the secretaries, the assemblers, and so on, where their jobs are being taken away by technology already. The second scenario is existing traditional high-skilled jobs like the engineers, the R&D specialists, the marketing specialists. They need to integrate digital capabilities like cybersecurity, IoT, artificial intelligence, and so on, so that their jobs will get enriched. Third scenario is that we are going to see completely new jobs coming up. Already some of those have started coming up, but in the coming days, we are going to see many more of these roles emanating in the areas of content, in the areas of user engagement, and also in the domain of analytics. The other area where there will be continuously new jobs and new opportunities opening up would be to do with technology. And we will now look at some of these business roles. There are a plethora of these roles in the areas of content, in the areas of content, for example, knowledge manager, digital knowledge manager, multilingual specialist, virtual reality architects, and so on. In the context of user engagement, there is going to be an exciting role called growth hacking manager. You may wonder what it is. It simply means that for a startup, this is a specialist who can help them think through how to get astronomical growth by acquiring customers at the fastest rate. And then, of course, because there is going to be humongous amount of data that is going to come out of multiple gadgets and multiple channels, we are going to see data science specialists, web analysts, domain-specific data science specialists, for instance, HR analysts, marketing analysts, and so on. And when I mentioned about new roles emanating in digital technology, you have a whole host of them, starting with artificial intelligence to robotic process automation to areas such as virtual reality and augmented reality. So to summarize, what we are saying is that in order to remain a winner, in order to become a winner in the digital era, you will require a whole host of skills other than digital skills. That would include problem-solving skills, creative skills, the ability to narrate a story, the ability to translate your experience from one domain to the other and articulate that well, and of course presentation skills and exposure to multiple disciplines. In addition to all of these, there is one more skill I think is important, and for that I would like to take a couple of minutes to narrate a small story. So here is a sheikh who lives in the Middle East, and he dies one day, and he leaves behind a will for his 3 sons. And in his will, he says, my assets will have to be distributed in this ratio. And what is the most important asset for a sheikh living in the Gulf? Camels. So he said, I have 17 camels. These 17 camels will have to be distributed in the ratio of 1/2 to my first son, 1/3 to my second son, and 1/9 to my third son. Now, all the 3 sons were very worried, vexed. They just didn't know how to do this. They said, look, camels, killing camels is blasphemy in the Middle East. How do I get this done? So someone said, don't worry, there is a design thinking specialist in France. Let's get him over. And then there is a data scientist who is there in the US. Let's get him over. Between the two, maybe we'll find a solution. So both of them came, they looked at the problem, and the French guy said, look, the problem itself is so vague. Ooh la la, this is not something that I can do, and then he got away. The American said, I'm using all this data modeling on my laptop, and I have tried to figure out what is a solution, but I'm not able to get the perfect solution despite all my efforts in modeling. I think I need to take it back to my R&D, and I've got to figure out a solution. Maybe it will take some time. Time was running out for these guys. And then somebody said, don't worry, there is still one more option you could look at, and let's send out this email to the director of, there is a school called OrchidSchool in Pune, in India. Let's send this email to this director, and she is visionary, her students are very smart, maybe they will come up with a solution. So lo and behold, the email arrives at the desk of Lakshmi Kumar. She calls the students and says, hey guys, there is a challenge from the Middle East. Who would like to take up the challenge? The first hand goes up, and that's of Tejas. Tejas says, man, I want to take a shot at it. So off he goes on a flight to Dubai. He arrives at the airport. He is given a camel, and he says, look, those guys are in the oasis in the middle of the desert. Quickly, go ahead. They are very worried. So he arrives there, and then he figures out what is the problem. They tell him, this is my problem. We don't know without cutting the camel, how do we distribute? He says, oh, that's it, no problem. Keep my camel. So you got 18. What is half of 18? 9. Give it to the first son. What is 1/3? Give 6 to the second son. What is 1/9? 2. Give it to the third son. And what are you left with? 1. Whose is it? Oh, that's mine. And he rides the camel and comes back. So, friends, what I'm trying to say is, we need all of these skills and more, what I spoke about. But above all of these, we know that AI is also going to be there to help us. But most important skill which we should continue to cultivate is the ability to think out of the box. And human beings alone would be able to do this for a long time to come. Thank you very much.